You are now tuned in.
You are now tuned in to Let's Talk About Healing.
I recognized that I wanted to come out of that deep, dark place I was in.
Like the story that we are repeating over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We can change it.
Yeah.
I went in with an open mind, an open heart, and I said, you know what? I'm willing to learn the truth about all of this because I don't understand.
Now here's your host, Yvonne Pierre.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Healing, where I have interesting conversations with various guests on a variety of topics regarding healing the mind, body, and spirit. Today, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Chris Templeton, the founder of The Stories We Tell, that has 3 simple questions and a model. It is designed to be a simple tool for self-awareness, self-development, and leadership. It's not therapy or a belief system. What it is, it's a tool for clear vision of ourselves and those around us. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much for having me. I really am looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah. Before we get started, I just wanted to share with you that when I spoke with you last, you suggested a book, A Man's Search for Meaning, and a video, a TED Talk video with Jill, what was her last name?
Jill Bolte
Jill
Taylor.
Bolte Taylor. Thank you so much for suggesting. And I said, well, let me watch the video while I'm washing clothes and because usually if I'm listening to a podcast or something like that, I'm doing something else. But once it started, I never left my seat. I sat there and watched it from beginning to end. It was really that interesting and powerful.
The thing that I think is so fascinating about that is she was a brain scientist who in her early 30s had a stroke, and it shut down the left side of her brain. And for most of us, that's the side of the brain that allows us to function on the planet. And so she's realizing that she's having a stroke, and when her left side, as she says, brain goes on and offline. But when it goes offline, she talks about being in La La Land, like this amazing place. And I think it's what everybody kind of thinks of as who we are without our bodies. We're part of the universe. And the way that she explains it is just mind-boggling. And her whole message is, look, this is within us all the time. We just need to make a decision to be there. And it really had a huge impact on me. Really a great video.
It is. Her video was really fascinating, and the book, and both of them. The book I haven't read yet, but I listened to the summary. The summary was so good that I said, okay, now I got to go get the book and read it. Man's Search for Meaning was powerful too. And it feels very much like common sense. Once you are aware of it, it's like, well, why didn't I know this?
Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was Jewish and ended up in the concentration camps. And I use a couple of quotes out of that book all the time because, as we were talking about before we got on the air, we have this tendency to think, oh my gosh, what I have to go through is so difficult. And what fascinated me about him was that, actually, I'll just read you a quick quote. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And you think about, being in a concentration camp and seeing people die around you and the emaciation, and to still be able to have meaning in
Yeah.
your life. I think the thing that I want people to recognize is you have a choice. You have the choice to have meaning in your life, and it can never, ever be based on the outside world and doing it the way that you think it should be done. It's you connecting with your inside world and allowing that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a quote, 90%, 10% is what happens to us. 90% is what we do with it. And it's how we choose. Like you said, we have an opportunity to choose, regardless of what your religious beliefs are. Even in the Bible, it says that God give us the freedom of choice.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing. The reason I'm on with you today is because I want to help people to understand that choice, how to make that choice, why we don't make it on a regular basis, and kind of how to undo that. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to read you one other quote, not from comes from Stephen Covey's book, but it's something he read in Hawaii in 1969. But it's between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so really the other thing that I want to help people to understand is that if I can take and create space between stimulus and how I respond to it, whether it's what I'm thinking about myself or the world around me, if I can broaden that space, what that does is it stops me from living by default. And when I increase that space, the world is a whole nother place than it was when we just were living by default. Yeah. So something to just kind of plant in everybody's heads.
Yeah. So thank you for suggesting both of those. With your the stories we tell. You created this, which has, as I mentioned, 3 questions and a model that helps us create self-awareness. What is the significance of all the stories we tell?
Well, I think the first thing is, probably the best way to do it is just run through the questions. The first question is, what's the story I'm telling? And this is a question that we want to ask when things aren't going our way or aren't going the way we expected to, for either ourselves or for how we're perceiving what's going on in our world at work and relationships, that sort of thing. And the whole reason we start with that question specifically is it helps me take a step back and be a little bit more objective. I'm so upset with X, Y, or Z. Okay, wait a minute. What's the story I'm telling? Well, I'm really mad because X, Y, and Z. And so when I look at it as a story, I automatically get that sense that, oh my gosh, I could edit this, right? And when we're talking about that stimulus and response, when I take the time, instead of just reacting by default, to ask that question, I create a little bit of space and I get to take a little bit broader look around. So that's the first question. And so that's significant just from the standpoint of creating an awareness of the fact that we are always telling stories about what's going on. We narrate our world all the time, but we do it from 2 very different places. And one place is very much fear-based and problem-oriented, and the other place is it's not positive. It's centered and grounded. It's curious. As a matter of fact, I love I went looking for what the opposite of fear is, and I came up, one person defined it as curiosity. And when you think about it, hey, wait, what is the story I'm telling? I can get a little curious. I can get a better sense of what the other players are. So the second question is, does it serve me in this moment, right here and now? Does it serve me? a minute ago, not an hour ago, not a lifetime ago. And so much of what the stories we tell is based on the past and how we coped with certain situations. And so if I say, okay, is it serving me in this moment? And oh my God, it's not. Then the third question is there a more authentic story I can tell? So can I just, I'm really upset with this person, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. It's not the way that I would do it. Like, that's a much, much better story, right? And the other thing that's in terms of significance is that it blows right past emotion. Think about how many times you or people I was just mad and that was that. Oh, great. Okay. So, well, I'm just mad. But what's next? Well, I'm just mad. When we ask this question in terms of, is it serving me in this moment? And can I tell a more authentic story? Oh my gosh, I've changed how I perceive my world in an authentic way, not in a happy, positive, unicorns and, fairy dust, but in a real honest to goodness way. And so those three questions form the basis of this work that I've done. And for me, it's changed my world in terms of how I deal with my relationships, how I deal with work situations, and most of all, and the thing that I think is more important than anything, how I deal with myself, right? I recognize, oh my gosh, I'm telling a story that's not serving myself. How can I authenticize it so that I don't feel, because when I'm telling a story that doesn't serve me, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. It's not solution oriented.
Yeah. So let's paint a picture of the model. And I see it as a funnel, like an upside down triangle or so let's break that down.
So if what you did is you took a V and you put a horizontal line right through the middle of it, what you'd do is you'd put above that V, you'd put the first question, what's the story I'm telling? And next to that line that's horizontal going through the middle of the V, that's where the second question goes, is it serving me in this moment? And then the third question goes under the V, is there a more authentic story I can tell? And so when you think about it, if I'm not telling an authentic story, we say that goes above the line, this horizontal line. And when I'm not telling stories that serve me, my emotions have a tendency to be much broader and much more severe, and more on the positive side. They tend to be, super, super positive. Or on the negative side, they tend to be really negative. And so when you think about it, the reason for the V is to show the range of emotion that's available to me. Above that line, it's a lot more. Below that line, when I'm telling stories that serve me, I'm in a centered and grounded place. Like, I may not like what's going on. I may be afraid, but I'm in a place where I am centered and grounded and able to look at what's going on and make sense out of it, figure out what's next, figure out how to help other people if that's the case, because I'm looking at, my relationship with my kid or my wife, and I want it to be better. So the whole idea of that V is anytime I can look at and say, okay, where am I? Am I above the line, which is where I really don't want to be? And what can I do to move myself below the line? So it's very prescriptive in that I know the second that I've kind of internalized this model that the goal is to get below that line. It's not always going to work. And I'm not saying that you should always be below the line, because that's simply an impossibility. But there's so much I can do in that space between stimulus and response to get myself closer to the line or below it and get me solution-oriented, centered and grounded, where I don't feel like a victim. I don't feel as much fear. I may still feel some fear, but that's more situational. And so, the idea becomes I have this really nice tool to understand where I am in any given moment. And it's, the whole intention was that it could be universal. It applies to everybody on the planet with a very, very few exceptions. And if I internalize that model, I understand myself better and I understand others better.
Yeah. So I'm just imagining, and I kind of, as you're explaining it, I'm walking myself through thoughts that I've had that weren't serving me, because sometimes I'll get these reoccurring thoughts that it's almost like my brain is trying to figure it out or trying to process something that happened or whatever, but it may be based on, like you said, a story and not actual facts. For example,
what? Are you saying that part of the human condition is to make up stories that aren't based in fact?
So it may be, for
never.
example, let's say I send someone a text that we may not be in a good place. And I send them a text and hours go by and they don't respond. Instead of me saying, okay, they're busy, I'd have made up an entire story of why they're not answering my text. And then I'm going over and over, like, what happened? What did I say wrong? What did I, and instead of stopping myself and say, okay, is this serving me?
Well, and it really brings up an important point. What I said earlier, that, we're constantly narrating our stories. What happens is when we're narrating a story from above the line, that's what we all refer to as the ego, the inner critic, the inner bully. I refer to that part of us that is hardwired in to the protector as the protector, because I want people to understand that when we're above the line, that's our tendency. It's always fear-based, isn't it, Yvonne? Oh my God, are they mad at me? Are they? And so when you think about it, if you reframe the ego as the protector, that what it's there to do is to keep you safe. Well, if you go back, 100,000 years, man, oh man, we're nothing on our own. I mean, the only reason we're here is because what we can do as a group. So part of what's hardwired into us is that desire to be a part of the group. And it's that fight, flight, or freeze response. That's all hardwired into kind of our old brain that's still there. I think they call it the limbic brain. And so when you recognize that you're telling stories and you're taking yourself down a hole, which we all do. This is one of the things that's so fascinating to me about the protector in each of us, is it thinks that they're the only one. It's the only one that's going through this. Oh, they must be upset with me, blah, 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 blah. And one of the great practices is to say, I don't know, to yourself, and to recognize that when I say I don't know, I give myself some space. I increase that space a little bit. And so when we recognize that this protector is always at work, and what you were talking about is that protector going off and freaking out, when you recognize and you listen to it, this is one of the key things. So many people say, well, you just got to put that to the side and push on through. And that's the worst answer ever, because that's the protector saying, look, but don't look. It's I equate it to the kids that are the goth kids, all in black, the dark eye makeup. Look at me, but don't look at me. Don't, and it's the same. That is the exact same thing that the protector does. So one of the things that I'm such an advocate of is just letting the voice of the protector go, like, write whatever it says. You're the worst. I can't believe that you're doing this. Oh, and your friend, she's awful, and blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, what you're doing is you're letting air out of that balloon. And when you think about what you just said about, somebody not responding to a text, what you're doing is your little protector is in there blowing up the balloon. I hope she's not mad at me. I wonder if I did something wrong. And this balloon's getting fuller and fuller. And so what we have this tendency to do, the protector's solution to that is, well, I got this. You don't have to worry about it. And really, when at some level, there's value in thinking of it as a separate personality, that is kind of runs roughshod until you recognize that it's there to help you, that it's okay to listen to it, and that the value of listening to it and really hearing what it has to say is it lets the air out of that balloon, and I start to move below that line where I can now be solution oriented. God, I hope nothing's wrong. I hope everything's okay, but I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing, because there's no value in me driving myself crazy
over something that you don't know for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what the protector is hardwired to do. It's hard to keep us safe way back when, is to make up those stories. Okay, could it be this? Could it be that? And so that's the thing. It's so important to understand, is that if you are not partnered with your protector, you are going to have a miserable life. And we all have parts of our lives that are super miserable because we don't want to look at what the protector's paying attention to, because it feels so bad. But the minute that we do, oh my gosh, that wasn't so bad. And I don't know. Space between stimulus and response, man. Oh man. Big stuff.
And I will give my husband and my oldest son credit for helping me with that. And I have to point out that I don't do that anymore. But because I'm an overthinker. My husband used to say, but you don't know that for sure. So
How could he say that?
So why are you reacting, and why are you upset over something that you don't know for sure? And my son, my youngest son, we were taking him to get some testing done, and they thought he had some type of rare condition and all this stuff going on. And I was asking my oldest son, well, how do you feel? And he was like, he said, nothing has happened yet. He was like, I don't feel any kind of way right now because we don't know what's going on. I don't have anything to base how I feel on.
Oh my God.
And I said,
that is one brilliant son.
And I said, oh my God. And it snapped me into reality that I'm freaking out over something that hasn't happened. So the protector, is it the ego, or is there a difference between the protector and the ego?
To me, there's no difference. It's just the story that you tell about what it is, right?
Okay.
Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, he calls it the pain body. And I just like, oh my God, that is what a fabulous way to empower that part of you. If all you got to do is tell it that it's bad, it's going to have fun with that one. And that's the thing. Like, when I refer to it as the protector and recognize that what it's doing at its base is fear-based, because it's trying to make sure that I'm safe in the world, but that it really is there to serve me and to show me, hey, you need to be concerned about this. And that's good information, right? It's good there's nothing wrong with that part of you saying, God, I hope, my friend's okay. I wonder why. But it's important that my next step, as best as I can, is to move south and hopefully below that line where I say to myself, I hope she is okay. And this is why this is very different from positive thinking, which anytime I hear positive thinking, my head wants to explode, because it's not the right way to do it. Oh, I'm sure everything's okay. She'll call me back. She's going to be great. That's not that doesn't solve anything for us. That's kind of the protector in the positive side. But when we say, I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to upset my friend, and I hope she's okay. And I'm going to now just let it go and assume that things are going to be okay until I hear different, just like my son did when his little brother was going in for tests.
Yeah.
Right. But well, boy, our brains want to make sense out of everything right now, especially the protector. And that is the absolute key to making your life more meaningful, is to not get dragged down into that place where, I'm overthinking and I'm in my head, all of those expressions are all about a protector going too
Yeah.
far. You never say to yourself, hey, I've been having this really great thought, a really good piece of work about this or that, and it's really been great, and I really feel like I've made some progress. You never refer to that as being in your head. You're like, oh my gosh, that was great. Worked so well.
Yeah.
So when you recognize that, really, when it comes right down to it, everybody's job in life for a meaningful life, and especially in the areas they struggle, is to bring that protector into balance. So you don't ignore it. You don't pretend that it's not happening. You don't positive your way out of it. You listen to what it has to say. And then you try to move on by authenticizing that story. Huge, huge difference in how friendly my world is.
You made so many good points. One of the things that I wanted to point out that you said was about how we have thousands of thoughts a day and how we don't point out the positive, the good things that are happening in our head. We always point out the negative. And well, one, that's reflective to life. Most things that go viral, I mean, there's some good things that go viral, but it's usually the bad things that people talk about the most, regardless of how many amazing things they have seen all day. But the thing that gets talked about is the oh my God, did you see this? Or oh my God, So we're projecting outside of ourselves, and I'm just processing as I'm saying it. We're projecting outside of ourselves what's going on in the inside. And sometimes my negative thoughts get on repeat. And I have to.
Only sometimes? For me, it's regularly.
But what I had been doing was rebuking it. I would say, what? I rebuke that. And it'll poof, go away.
Wish it would, but it won't.
Yeah, it's probably a little quieter, but it's probably still there. Or just temporarily go away and then come back. And your tool is a different approach that I would definitely put into practice. That's a better way to do it. And I wanted to point out too that there's different types of positivity. What you suggested that we do is a more positive way to deal with it. But the one you said before, fairies and unicorns and stuff, that's a little delusional. But
right, and that's above the line on the positive side of the V.
Yeah, it's a little delusional. But to say, I hope they're okay, to acknowledge that that's a concern. I hope they're okay. And then find something good to say to move on from it.
Right. And it's not so much that it's good to say, but something that addresses the concerns of the protector in a way that it steps down. Like, okay, I've kind of outlined the problems. You've said that, okay, I acknowledge that those might be problems and we're going to wait and see. Then, and that's the thing, a protector that's in balance, a protector's never going away. Never going away. Everybody in the enlightenment world and spirituality is like, oh my God, if I just get here, that part of me won't exist. Nope, it's always going to exist. But when you have it in balance and you are acknowledging it and not rebuking it, because that gives it power. I mean, think about it. What does the protector feed on? It feeds on negativity.
And you're trying to get rid of it.
Feeds on. Absolutely. You're going to get rid of me? I don't think so.
Let me get a little louder.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point. And so I think what you were referring to a little earlier is one of the things that I'm a huge advocate of is appreciation. There's a lot of talk in the spiritual and enlightenment world about gratitude. And gratitude is wonderful where it's appropriate, but there are all the other things that I can't be appreciative of, that I can't be grateful for, at least not immediately. I had a heart attack. How in the hell am I supposed to be grateful for that? I mean, there are some things that you might come up with that do make sense.
Yeah.
But exactly, that I found out about it, those sorts of things. But when I appreciate something, it allows me to, and this is especially true with external things, like if I've been abused or treated poorly by my parents, that sort of thing. You know, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to grateful there.
Yeah, right.
But I can sure get to appreciation. You know, they've got a protector just like I do, and their protector was programmed by their parents and how they treated them. And at least I get perspective, right? It doesn't condone it, but it allows me to kind of upfront, face on, deal with it in a way that serves me. And so, you know, appreciation is, for me, the biggest practice there is. And practice is the biggest thing that I want people to take away from this. Look, practice being a better version of yourself, the version that you want to be. And the way that you do that is you create that space between stimulus and response, and you start to appreciate the tough stuff, and you start to get things in a better place, moving them south below that line, where you take all the crappy stuff that happened above the line, convert the stories, get that protector in place and in balance, and all of a sudden, the amount of meaning in my life flourishes. I mean, honest to God, it just totally changes. And it's not all this positive stuff, but boy, oh boy, it's really a whole better place to be, isn't it?
Yeah. I've noticed that I was on this diet all the time, but I was on this diet, on a specific diet, where I was eating mostly fruit. And on the 8th day, I said, "You've been doing so good." My protector said, "You was doing so good. You can go ahead and eat. Have your snack. Reward yourself," right? So I did. Then I felt horrible. And then my protector said, "Now, why would you do that?" Now,
isn't it fascinating how it has the ability to, it speaks out of both sides of its mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Here's a fascinating study. There's a woman out of Stanford University by the name of Kelly McGonigal, and she did a great TED Talk on stress, where she starts out and says, you know, for years, I'm a psychologist, and the people that I've worked with, I've said stress is bad, and I was wrong. Stress is all about your body getting you ready to do whatever it needs to do, if you frame it up that way. She also did a study, because she's all about motivation. She did a study, a weight loss study. And what they did, all they did is they had participants come in, and one group came in to fill out an application to be a part of this diet study. And they left a plate of donuts next to the application and didn't say a thing about them. And of course, donuts get eaten. Then the second group came in, same exact scenario, except for the researcher says to the person as they're filling out, you know, you are going to have days where a diet just isn't going to work for you. And I want you to know that it's okay to have those days. The difference in the weight loss of the people that were told that it was okay was significantly more weight loss than the people who were not told that. And so from my perspective, what's going on is, and it's a tightrope, isn't it, Yvonne? I mean, you know, like I'm on it. I've been dieting for about 2 months now, and just with some app, and it's really been fascinating to me. But part of what I know going into it is I got to talk my protector down about how this is going to go, because, you know, here's what you hear from this is the protector's stories. You know, Yvonne, you've got to give it 110%. You got to go every day. It has to work every day. And if it fails once, it's a complete failure. Like that is the kind of talk that the protector goes through. And then the problem is, this is why we see so many issues with dieting, is that, the protector's like, well, that one failed. Let's just eat some more. And then you're 6 months down the road. Oh, this diet looks like it's going to be really cool. And the protector's full on it. Yeah, we're going to give it 110%. And then it didn't work. And now we're starting, now that protector's getting more and more power because, oh, we're going to diet again. This isn't going to work. I mean, you can hear yourself do that kind of stuff. So what's fascinating to me is when you address the protector, like what I've said is, look, there are going to be days that I eat more than I should, and then I'm being asked to eat. And every now and then that's okay. So maybe in 2 months, I've had 4 or 5 days where I've eaten somewhat over and 1 or 2 days where I've eaten a lot over. And I'm decided that, me and the protector, we got a deal. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is really fascinating is this idea of got to give it 100%. Why? Wouldn't you be happy if you just got to 70% of what you should be eating and where you want to be dieting? And then if you got over that, it felt even better. Like we have all these little things that a protector think 100% every day. Like, no.
Which makes you want to cheat even more because
exactly that's exactly
you're
what it is.
So restrictive, and it's like when you tell a kid, I don't know if you've seen the little videos where they put candy or something in front of the kid, and the parent walk away and say, "You can't eat any until I come back." But they're putting the temptation in their face. And some kids kept looking around the corner and they dove in, and some kids, would play with it, and but that's how it is with when you're very restrictive with yourself on anything, and you have to realize too that it's bad habits. I'm 51, so I have 40 something years of really bad eating habits that that my brain is accustomed to, and I'm being hard on myself for reverting back to the habit. So you have to.
And remember that that's the protector that's being, even though, yes, it's hard on yourself, it is the protector part of your brain that's setting you up to fail and that is sabotaging the whole thing. It's that. And like, that's the authentic story. You know what? I've been eating like this for 40 something years, and it's going to take some time. And I'm going to be, the phrase I love is, I'm going to be graceful with myself. I'm going to give myself the chance to fail, to go up into little me land, get beat up every now and then, and then talk that protector back into balance and go back to the solution. Like, I'm going to give myself room to fail a little bit. I'm not ever going to try and give it 110%, let alone 100%. I mean, we don't set good baselines. That's why that whole piece from Viktor Frankl is so important to me in terms of this work, is that, hey, listen, if somebody can find meaning in a concentration camp where people are emaciated and dying all around them and still find meaning, there's a place that I can find to diet in a way that serves me, that lets me make mistakes, that lets me go up into little me land a little bit, which is what I call that area above the line, and then get authentic with myself. I just, the goals that we set are so driven by wanting it right now. And that's what the protector wants, right? I want it right now.
Yeah. Nope, I want it yesterday. I got to get this weight off yesterday.
Yep. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And so that's one of the things that's so important, is to just recognize that is little me protector thinking that sets us up for failure before we've even started.
Wow. Yeah.
But when I can appreciate that that's how things work, I understand that that's part of my wiring, and that part of me is always going to try and keep me safe by keeping me well fed, right? I mean, think about that. That's hardwired into us. And so when I can talk it down and put it into perspective and say, dude, it's going to be okay. We might struggle here and there and might even, have too much every now and then, but that's okay if in general, overall, we're moving in the right direction. But boy, oh boy, the protector does not want to, initially doesn't want to do that. Are you kidding me?
What I realized is sometimes the ego or protector are voices that were given to me. Like, for example, growing up, I would always hear, who you think you are? You're not good enough. You're not the negative voices of people around me who didn't believe in me or fed negativity into me. And I realized later in life, I took on a lot of the things that they were saying about me,
right,
and took it on for myself. Like, for example, I had a friend that used to always talk about my lips, right? So when I got when I got older, after my heart attack, I looked in the mirror and I said, "There's nothing wrong with your lips." And I said, "Wait a minute, where did that come from?" Because I hated them. I grew to hate. It's parts of myself that I grew to hate, and I started questioning, where did that come from? And I realized it was projected on me from other people, but I took it on and it became my own voice. And in that case, where I'm looking in the mirror and I'm looking at my lips, I had to retell the story of that. And I learned to embrace those things about myself that I hated that were projected on me from other people.
The thing that's so important is what you said is the protector took it on. And that's the thing. Like anything that's fear-based, that makes us feel less than, that makes us feel like we don't have hope, like we're victims. The protector is the one that just embraces all of that. That's all food for the protector, is a great way to look at it. And so, adversity is always going to be there. But the question is, when do I take the stories from the protector and move them down below that line into an authentic place? And it is work. It is, for me, it's writing. I write from three perspectives. I write from the perspective of the protector. I write from the perspective of my authentic self. And then I write from what I call the coach, which is a lower down in the model. And it's kind of for Christians, it's kind of the peace of Christ within us, right? It's that ideal parent, that ideal mentor. And writing from all three of those perspectives really helps to get it out of, and where we're in our head, oh my God, my lips. Oh, I'm hideous. What am I? Oh, this is awful. That's all. If I can get your audience to just recognize that any kind of negative, fearful, victimized, helpless, hopeless self-talk is all protector, and it's okay. It's okay that that's there, but your job is to authenticize those stories. It's getting perspective. It's those authentic stories that is just the key to a meaningful life. And, unfortunately, it's those little things, my lips or whatever, my weight or, my heart, that we have a tendency to just leave in the protector's hands. And that is such an awful thing to do. And it's so good at saying, oh, no, I got it. Don't, your lips are awful and you're way overweight and you should have had a heart attack years ago, but I'll put it in a little corner here and let it fester. And that's what it does. It festers, doesn't it? And we just drive ourselves crazy. And then it starts to spill over into other parts of our lives. So knowing that you have the ability over time, not tomorrow, to really change your relationship with that aspect of your personality is hugely, hugely important. Yeah. And appreciation is one of the best ways to get there.
Yeah. And self-acceptance seems to be the key to everything. our happiness, our contentment, our love for ourselves, and how we accept the world around us, how we accept. A lot of times we stand in the way of our own success because of low self esteem or not having a level of acceptance. How does self esteem play into self acceptance?
This is a great question. Think about a baby. Think about a toddler who goes from joyful to screaming at the top of his lungs, right back to joyful, like moment to moment,
Yeah,
right? And we've all seen that happen. And it's the same thing. It's that we've got this part of us that's so hardwired. So here's the thing, what you want to think about, we talk about self-confidence, self-esteem, we talk about so many things. And what we don't recognize is there's two steps to all of this. The point of talking about the baby is when the baby is happy and it doesn't have any problems with self-esteem, it doesn't have any problems with confidence, it's a joyful being. And then it gets hungry and goes into little me land and screams until it gets fed,
yeah,
type of thing. But with self-acceptance, what we have to recognize was imposter syndrome, self-acceptance, self-esteem. The two steps are, first, to get rid of the anti of that, anti-acceptance, anti-esteem, anti-self-esteem, and that is all driven by the protector. So if what we recognize, that it's like any problem, this texting, oh God, I hope I didn't upset them. But it's this idea that the protector runs with it and makes it worse and worse and worse and worse. So that's why it becomes so critical that we recognize that 90% of our struggles are because it's this protector that's running loose without any
yeah,
boundaries, without any discussion. So what I have to recognize, first of all, when it comes to self-acceptance or self-esteem, is that I've got to deal with a part that's saying, no, you shouldn't have self-esteem. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. All of those things, all protector. And now we have to start writing and having conversations with this aspect of ourselves to say, hey, wait a minute, is that true? Right? This is where appreciation and gratitude come in really powerfully, because I can start to say, well, I know that it's like you said earlier, Yvonne, I have all this great stuff, but what do I focus on? The negative, and it gets so much
yeah,
attention. And it's just because we allow the protector to be our default answer, and that we don't take the time to sit down every morning. I won't say every morning, most mornings I sit down and I write what I'm appreciative of for myself and for the world around me. So and the thing that's so amazing about it is, as I do that, the protector mellows out and comes into balance. And it's the same thing with meditation. Any of these practices are all designed to help me get that protector back in balance. And when my protector's in balance, I'm confident, I have self-esteem. It's just that I become so practiced at the protector, just raging on about how you shouldn't be this and you shouldn't be that, that I think that that's who I am. And I promise you it's not. I mean, who knows that better than you in terms of your life experience, from what you went through growing up as a kid to being a doctoral
yeah,
candidate? I mean, but you changed stories so that you could move forward,
yeah,
didn't you?
yeah,
And that's the other thing. It's okay to have feelings of being an imposter. It's okay to have, all these feelings of not feeling good self-esteem or self-confidence, or feeling, all of that is okay. We have to get to a point where we recognize that this is how we're wired. It's okay to be there as long as I balance
yeah,
it out.
yeah. As you're talking about, and we can't believe the time went by so fast. as you were talking about the protector, one of the things that resonated with me when you said that we have to embrace that that's part of it. It reminded me of fear, how sometimes fear, we don't want it, we try to get rid of it, but we need it. It is there to protect us, it is there to keep us safe. But sometimes we feed it a little more than we should.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Never, don't we?
We feed into it a little way more than we should. But and then we end up creating stories around why we're so afraid of this or so afraid of that. And those stories keep us stuck. Not the fact that we had the fear initially. It's what we're telling ourselves about that fear that makes the fear paralyzing.
Yep. You hit it right on the head of the nail. Boy, oh boy, is that the truth or what? And we all do it. But, and that's, why I said earlier, man, make your life a practice. Yeah. If you just decide that your life from here on out is going to be practice, that is creating more of that space where you're telling the protector, hey, dude, you know what? I'm going to make some mistakes. We'll figure it out. I know you'll let me know when I'm making a mistake. But we're going to talk it out, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make sense of it, and we're going to move forward from an authentic place. So we're going to really respect what you bring to the table. We're going to, like you said, embrace the protector. But I'm not going to let the emotions that you create hobble me. And that's why that second question, is this serving me in this moment, so important, because I get to bypass the emotion and say, well, wait a minute, is it? Hey, there's plenty of good value of fear, right?
Yeah.
But it's what you do with it in the end. And so many of us just don't understand that through practices like writing and appreciation and saying, gee, I don't know. Man, oh man, it lightens life up a lot.
Yeah. And taking the time to learn and like this right now, having this conversation, listening to podcasts or, cause I'm like obsessed with listening to other podcasts. But I'm constantly trying to educate myself on things because just like, the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding. So, and regardless of what your religion is, I think that it may be said differently, but they all say not to lean on your own understanding, to educate yourself and to learn and to grow and embrace it.
You know what it does? It lets us enjoy the journey as opposed to suffer until we get whatever we think we want. Right? I mean, that's the protector's standpoint is I'll be happy when, right? And I may be happy for an hour or a day when I get my new car or, when I get in a new relationship or whatever the case may be. But, if I'm allowing the protector to run things, it's very conditionally based versus when you go below that line, you really enjoy the journey. You're okay with going up into Little Me Land because that's just part of it, but you don't give it so much power. One of the things that people have always said in the spiritual world and enlightenment is, Yvonne, you create your own reality. Oh my God. Well, everything is just a dream. Kill me now. But what we do is we do create our reality through the stories we tell, like you were saying earlier. And the problem is we rehearse. The protector loves to rehearse the problem. Oh, and can you believe what she did? And then he did this and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, it gets to a breaking point and you're yelling at somebody about something that you've made up in your head that they didn't do. Oh my God, the worst thing ever. But we've all had it happen, right? And so when we recognize that that's part of how the protector works.
We fill in the blanks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So Go over the 3 questions again before we go.
Sure. What's the story I'm telling is the first
Mm-hmm.
question. And the idea is it gives me a way to step back from what I'm thinking about myself or the world around me and just, what is the story I'm telling? And then the second question is it serving me in this moment? This behavior could have been really great behavior when I was a kid dealing with tough parents or being bullied at school or whatever the case may be. But is it serving me right here and now? And that's a yes or no question. No, I go above that line into little me land where the protector's running the show, or yes, it is serving me. And I typically am not going to be asking the question when my behavior's serving me because it's a good place to
Mm-hmm.
be. But that's where what I say where we are narrating our life in a way that's authentic. And then the third question is, if I am stuck in little me land, which is typically when the question's going to come up, it's simply saying, is there a more authentic story I can tell? And I love authentic because I think it's an overused word, but in this context, oh my
Yeah.
God, have I taken into account what I'm doing that's good? What's good about my life? What's good about the person that I'm thinking about or dealing with? And not necessarily good, but putting it in perspective, understanding that, dad being abusive, it was probably learned behavior, and he's got a protector just like I do. And so I get perspective. It doesn't make it all right, but it makes it a whole lot easier to look at and then make really much better decisions.
Yeah. Just to be clear, you're not saying, when you say embrace it, you're not saying just continue with, but to change the story.
Yeah, I'm saying, with embrace the protector from the standpoint of appreciating what it brings
Yeah.
to the table,
And not seeing it as the
appreciating.
enemy.
Oh, absolutely. The best thing you can do to empower the ego is tell it it's the
Yeah.
enemy. Oh my God, well, we got problems
Yeah.
then. But yeah, to embrace it. And you brought up self appreciation, self love. Look, the first step to that in my mind is appreciating yourself. Practice. What are the things that I can appreciate about myself? And there's stuff there. There is always stuff there. And when you start to focus on that a little bit, it kind of depowers the protectors. Like, oh, I guess you are okay. Maybe I don't need to be so fearful. Maybe I don't need to say that we're a victim. It's just time and practice.
Yeah. This was so good. And I really appreciate you taking this time. But before we go, how can people get in touch with you?
The best way is to go to the website, ohthestorieswetell.com, and you'll be able to see the model. You'll be able to see, read about kind of how I got there and how to implement it. So that's one place, ohthestorieswetell.com. The other way to find out more about this and to see it in practice is to go to YouTube and search for Oh, the Stories We Tell. A little thought bubble in blue with Oh, the Stories We Tell in a rusty orange color will come up. Click on that. That's my channel. Please, audience, do me a favor and like my channel. I'm relatively new at this, so I'm trying to get enough likes and subscriptions so that I can have a vanity URL. But if you go to that channel and then look at the playlist, The Honesty Project, you'll see me and a very good friend who I told about the model 10 years ago. And 5 years later, she came back and said, I can't get that out of my head. I've had kind of a rough upbringing and can we just have a conversation where I bring up an issue that I'm struggling with and you apply the model to it? And so there's, I think, 14 of those, and they're really good like this. Those are the two main places.
I'm going to make sure I subscribe to.
Yes, please.
And I'll also put that in the description.
That'd be great.
So thank you, Chris Templeton. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing this awesome information. Yeah, I look forward to following you on social media and learning more about this. And this was awesome. Thank you for taking your time to develop it and to be an agent of change.
Thank you. It has been my absolute pleasure, Yvonne. Totally appreciate it.
And to our listeners, thank you for taking the time to tune in. I hope that you are able to get something from each and every episode. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like, comment, and share. You owe it to yourself to heal and grow on purpose. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk About Healing with Yvonne Pierre. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share.